Equalang is gan, jostling is gan, had alases, lang lagen. All my brothers and sisters and all you good people, I'm happy to talk to you. Kawansangai is gan katu kun, is gan out hamas hinudikyaam. In Haida I have three names. One that I choose to use today is called Kitu Kun, the butt of the spear. That name comes from the time of the ice, when a man would kill a giant brown bear with a spear. He would set the butt of the spear in the ground and guide it as the bear impaled itself. So that's somebody who perseveres. Over the last 50 years, I've been involved in these kinds of activities, and nothing has really changed. I was reading the material that was put out about this, about how we have to start talking about something a little bit different. And I'm sometimes called the story man. So I want to tell you a story. When I was 3 years old, my grandfather took me to the history keepers. The ones who keep the ancient history, not all this other stuff, but the one that goes back to the beginning. We call it Chauk Igam. I'm telling the story of all the humans, not just us. And in that story it tells many, many things. And the way we look at it is the past is in front of me. You got to stop thinking like Europeans. Start thinking like who we are. The past is in front of me. I can see the path that was laid down by my ancestors. And as long as I can see it, I know if I'm going in a straight line. The future's behind me, it hasn't arrived yet. When it comes into view, I have to deal with it because it becomes a past. So we have to look at those things. And some of the messages they passed on to us was, remember the future. The things that happened before is going to happen again. One of the prophecies they told me about was, when the eagle flies the highest in the night and lands on the moon, will signal the dawning of a new day for the red race. For on that day the eagle will drop the arrows and carry only the branches. The arrows symbolize the enslavement of the red race. The branches symbolize the enslavement of the black race. And so when the eagle drops the arrows, it says that symbolizes that we've been set free and we may do as we choose. The eagle will continue to carry the branches, symbolizing the enslavement of the black race. There will be two uprisings of the black race. The second will be much more violent than the first. In 1969, I was watching on television while the US's Lunar Earth module landed on the moon. And when it landed, NASA announced the eagle has landed. I got a little dizzy because it suddenly brought back that prophecy. But I thought, no, they don't end this way. When I graduated from law school, my uncle sent for me. He gave me another name, Kawansana. That's a man who walks in the room carrying a newborn child. And he gave me this vest and a silver dollar. A few years later, I worked on Free Willy 2. And August Schellenberg, who played Randolph, gave me another silver dollar. I looked at the two of them and I thought, oh my God. The one silver dollar shows an American eagle holding olive branches in one talon, arrows in the other. The one given to me by my uncle, minted in 1972. If you take a look at it, I don't think I have one with me, but in the background you can see Earth. And there in the foreground is the eagle landing on the moon, carrying the olive branches but not the arrows. So in 1969 we were set free to do as we choose. The question is, what are we going to do? Are we going to build casinos? Are we going to build pipelines? Or are we going to start finding out who we are? We lived and survived for 500,000 years. And this stuff that's being brought to us now, I've been involved in stuff like stopping U.S. borax for putting in a world-class mine, shutting down hydroelectric project, being involved with the pulp mills in Alberta, stuff in the South Pacific. But yet we keep fighting against them because they keep coming after us. And what's happened? Residential school took away our survival skills. And if we're going to survive, we can no longer be angry individuals, because the European world is based on conflict. It's based on coins. It's based on competition and no trust. Our system was based upon trust and sharing. We know who our families are. If I'm to survive, my family has to survive. If my family is to survive, then my tribe has to survive. And we as humans, if we're going to survive, we have to survive as a human race, not as individuals. Get rid of race. Race is a false construct where somebody's trying to prove their superiority over somebody else. And all this stuff has nothing to do with oil or money. It has to do with water. It has to do with food. Now, one of the things that was taught to me by the old people was a prayer. A prayer that we don't use anymore, but the hands were held up in the morning to the sun in the shape of a triangle so the sun could shine on the forehead. And as you bring it down to about here, there are 7 power places within our bodies. And we ask to be re-empowered in the ways of our ancestors. And as we come down, what we're doing is reconnecting the sun to the earth. In the story of Tsleil-Waututh, it tells of a time when the sky was covered with a blanket of soot and dirt and we couldn't see the sun. It was dark. When the sun returned, we thanked the sun for removing the blanket of fear and darkness. So we have to do that again. And when we got down to this point, then we would ask, and I want you to repeat this. Say it after me now. I ask for the strength to be strong enough to be weak.
I ask for the strength to be strong enough to be weak.
To have the courage to be tall enough to not be small.
To ask for the courage to be tall enough to be small.
For the clear vision to see where I've been.
For the clear vision to see where I've been.
For the guidance I need on my journey. And a protection from those things that can harm me.
And for the protection from those things that can harm me.
So every morning, I start with water. Water is the first medicine. First thing I do every morning is I wash my face with cold water. I thank that water because it brings me life. Soon we won't be able to do that if they put these things in the ground. And oddly enough, my claim to fame comes from having worked on a movie called Snakes on a Plane. That plane represents our Earth. The skin of the aircraft is our atmosphere. Somebody on that plane has turned loose a bunch of deadly snakes. And they're on the same plane with us. It doesn't matter where you're sitting. You got to drink the same water, eat the same food, breathe the same air. So when we do that prayer, you start in the morning, wash your face with cold water to acknowledge that water is the first medicine. And then you thank the sun for removing the blanket of fear and darkness, so that now the light sweeps away the dark. And then you raise your hands this way, like it's a big ball, this way. That symbolizes now it is complete. Now it is complete. Thank you for making me human, born of a woman. Thank you for making me human, born of a woman. So you do this every day. And you start paying attention to people around you because our lives are dependent upon trusting each other and sharing, knowing who your family is. Those of you who have Native ancestry, go find out who your clans are. When I was growing up, I had 12 mothers. All the women of my mother's generation in her clan, I called the Ow, my mother. The children of those 12 women were my brothers and sisters. The brothers of those women, my uncles. But now we've removed ourselves and we've gotten into this other one, and people say, well, why can't we borrow from and take the best of both worlds? No, you can't do it. Because their world is a command-structured world based on patriarchy. There's always a boss at the very top, whether it's a religion, whether it's a government, or whatever, your families, there's always this pyramid. But ours is no, it's this way. There's no big boss. We have to be like those birds that change direction without somebody giving orders. That school of fish that does that. That means we have to pay attention to each other, learn to listen to each other, learn to feel feelings. When I first got out of the military I left residential school when I was 21 years old. Went into the military for another 4 years. It's not pleasant being shot at, but I was so angry. I hated everything and everybody, and I forgot all these things those old men have been teaching me. And it was a long road back. But we have to begin by trusting somebody else. Don't make them prove they can be trusted. Trust them. Trust them. I worked with Ganarji on radio show out at UBC. There was a guy standing there, and she asked him, do you speak another language? And he said, yes. Well, come on, sit down. She didn't even ask him who he was. She just trusted him. And one of the things I learned that also came from those down there was called Temazcal. Temazcal. That's returning to the ceremony for reconnecting with the earth. Up here we call them sweat ceremonies, but we've forgotten what the purpose is. Our history also tells the purpose of the feather, and our purpose tells us that Anwai, the big spirit in the atmosphere, is so big that it fills every corner of the universe. It fills every fiber of my being. It's not a lord or a king. I don't bow my head. It's not so petty that it has to make me look small. And that's what that prayer is. When I ask for the courage to be tall enough to not be small, my stature is determined by how tall I am, not how small I make somebody else look. When they start making you look small, that's the crazy bird singing. We call it Kunangala. When that bird sings, if you listen, you'll go crazy. If you don't listen, it'll go crazy singing its song. So we have to start singing our own song. I understand what being a warrior really is, and it's not a nice thing. It's not a nice thing to see the horrible things that humans do to each other by using that name. We want it to mean something else. You know, we were really bludgeoned by church and state, and yet we hold close to it like just the next moment the Christian message is going to come true. So I'm going to keep bowing my head. Their God is so small that it has to make us look small to be bigger. Anwai is so big it doesn't make us do that. We don't pray to it. We don't do all those things. But the first thing we got to do, this word respect is kind of a funny word. So instead what I do is I walk in such a way that I try not to cause anybody any discomfort. We don't brush against each other. If somebody's having a hard time, I stand by them. In Haida it's called Gudangai Tlatska, Di Gudangai Tlatska. My mind is strong because because you're standing by me. So we have to do that rather than just fighting the system all the time. We've been fighting I've been involved in it for about 50 years. And it's time to begin changing what our defining moments are. Residential school does not define me. My military experiences don't define me. My history as Haida, Hatai, which is human, defines who and what I am. And so with all this stuff people are trying to dump on us, we don't have to play the game. You all have watched hockey games. You don't win a hockey game by all being goalkeepers. You can have a whole team of goalies, but you can't ever win the game. And so are we going to be all goalkeepers? Or are we going to start teaching our values, teaching our history, teaching our children? This is our land for all of us humans. So thank you very much, and I had no idea where I was going. You know, I was talking to that security guy. He thinks he's outnumbered, but he isn't. He's one of us. He's human. He's a nice guy. So thank you very much, and thank you for providing us security. I'm very